Welcome to the Re-Entry Archive, The Winds of God's Wrath, a Mescaline experience report taken from erowid.org. This is an experience with mescaline on a beach in Texas. Me and my ex-girlfriend got 2 capsules of mescaline from my brother and decided to go down to the coast and camp out. This was the first time doing mescaline for both of us, and we were warned that it was going to be really intense. I'm very experienced with psychedelics, having done LSD, mushrooms, salvia, DMT, 2CI, DXM and MDMA on numerous occasions, so I kind of shrugged off the warning. I was expecting a fun LSD-like trip on the beach, but instead I had one of the most intense experiences I've ever had. The first night we go to the coast, we got stuck in the sand, got unstuck again, set up our tent, drank beer and smoked cannabis. The next day we got stuck in the sand again, spent our time drinking beer, getting out of the sand and smoking cannabis. We were going to trip the next day, but we ended up eating the mescaline that night. After we popped the pills, we chilled in my car and smoked a bowl. This was the last bowl we smoked, because when we got out of my car and went to the tent, I locked my keys in my car by accident. While we were waiting for the trip to start, I fell asleep and woke up in an intense trip with fluctuating loss and regain of ego. I can't recall the exact chronology of events, because I was in a complete time warp during which visions and experiences happened. It would reach dawn and we'd be running around the beach, and then we'd go back to the tent. My girlfriend folded me up into some vision, and then I'd wake up and it would be night again. My trip consisted of being pulled back into this time warp numerous times. When I woke up in my tent, each time I would see a light through the tent coming down the beach. I had a strong intuition to run out and meet the light. As the light came down the beach, the winds of God's wrath were blowing hard against me. The experience wasn't the same every time. The first couple or few times the light came down the beach, it was a car. The last time the light came down the beach, it was a helicopter. When the cars came down the beach, they seemed to disappear at the point that my car was parked, and then my car would transform into different kinds of cars. At some point, I realised that this was the devil tempting me, with the idea that he could give me material gain, such as a new car. The last time I experienced this Passover of God's wrath, I had an out-of-body experience, and saw myself with this raging bull ghost running through me. This thing didn't have legs, rather it had a ghost bottom, and was running up and down my body, kind of like the Kundalini. The winds of God's wrath were blowing hard at me, and I was burning up with this bull running through me. I felt like I was going to burst into flames. Come to think of it, I experienced the bull thing more than once. One time, I actually remember getting a glimpse of hell, and its eternal shame and darkness. I had a vision of a skull with flames in the eyes and dead angel wings and pure darkness and a loud shrieking scream. Anyway, the only way to keep from bursting into flames was to hold up Jesus in my heart. This is love of God's Son, even the baby Jesus. That seed had been planted in my heart that I had to nourish and not smother. If I didn't do this, God's wrath would have destroyed me in this trip, as far as I know. But I passed the test, though I did get a sense of failure as I was in the time warp, and I experienced this more than once. Before this, I was a very New Age influenced, watered down Christian, a wannabe Christian, that didn't literally accept the miracles and the power of God. Revelation says of the church, they will have a form of godliness, but deny the power thereof. After this mescaline trip, I believe in miracles, and I guess you could call me a born-again Christian. About a week later, my girlfriend baptized me in the Green Belt in Austin, Texas. After that, I was standing on a rock, and a bunch of little fish literally gathered around me and were looking at me. Jesus said, "I will make you fishers of men." During and after the trip, Bible verses came up that had significance, sayings like, "Don't sway in the wind," and Bible verses that talk about building your tent on solid ground. And if you're ready and know the thieves, then they can't break in and steal your inheritance. In the Passover of Exodus, the destroyer passes over Egypt, and whoever has the blood of a lamb on the door was protected. In Revelation, Jesus treads the winepress of God's wrath, meaning he follows the tribulation carried out by the destroyer. When I would wake up in my tent and see the light coming down the beach, it was like a voice saying, "Go and meet the light. It is Jesus coming to give you your inheritance." During the last experience of this particular part of the trip, when the helicopter came down the beach, I actually felt as if I was caught up for a second. And then I came back to the beach and there was nothing on it. No cars, no tents, nothing. I was frightened. I didn't want to be alone. And then I started thinking, realizing I had a slight non-realization of ego. And I said aloud, "I am me, and I have a life to answer for." At that instant, everything reappeared on the beach, except for my car. And I think I became conscious of my girlfriend's presence again, who was just kind of following me through my trip. And she said she saw my car disappear too. However, I decided to walk up to the place where my car was supposed to be, and it reappeared. I think there's a big difference between a random hallucination and a higher consciousness actually messaging you. I believe I experienced time travel during this trip. I would be standing on the beach and I would see cars and tents and RVs all changing, disappearing, reappearing as new things rapidly, as if time was passing before my eyes. I felt like I was in a sort of higher consciousness, kind of like Scrooge in the Muppet story, when he has to go around and see the people he oppresses on Christmas. There's other parts of the experience I could include, but they're kind of hard to word, and they are irrelevant to the core of this experience. The sun finally came up, and I felt victorious in a way. My girlfriend was trying to mess around with me, sexually, but I resisted, even though I was horny, and said no, Jesus Christ is more important. I cracked a beer, because we locked the water in my car, and walked out to the experience, the beauty and the glory of the beach. And all these birds would come up to us and fly around in a circle. It was cool. It was definitely a good beach. We got my car unlocked, but I didn't have cell phone service yet. I relied on my faith, and the wind brought me my cell phone service when I needed it. I called my dad and had him help us out. After I hung up, my service disappeared again. Very interesting. Anyway, that pretty much sums up my purpose of this experience report. I'm not sure if I'm going to do psychedelics anymore. I kind of want to see what mescaline is like in another environment, but it's really intense, and I don't know if I need that experience again. I guess I'll see how life unfolds. The many miracles and visions encountered in this, and in fact all psychedelic experiences, are real in a symbolic sense. They reflect truths and lessons from the psyche. But integration happens in ordinary life. The great challenge of integration is to draw upon this symbolism and to allow it to guide you towards change. No one can tell you what this change should look like. For this traveller, practicing kindness, patience, and service in the real world could perhaps be a way of living what they experienced. But this is up to them to decide. The vision of the devil offering material gain suggests past entanglement with an overbearing ego, with pride and desire. Integration means not rejecting these forces entirely, but understanding and mastering them consciously. The aim is not to become a perfect person, but a whole one. The final goal is absolute authenticity. The moment of holding baby Jesus in the heart is a potent symbol. It reminds us that the divine is not always grand. Sometimes it is fragile and innocent, can easily be overshadowed by the ego. This traveller may wish to hold on to the image of the baby Jesus and let it guide their behaviour. Simple mantras and questions can be used to help bring us back to this state of being. For example, the question, am I feeding the divine child within me? Or am I ignoring it?